Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Landon Rank. I am the Associate Director of SB Act, and I'm here joined with my colleagues, Rich Sander, our Executive Director, and Kai Tilley, who's our Program Administrator. And it's really great to see so many of you on the call today. I also want to recognize we have Councilmember Oscar Gutierrez with us, as well as city staff representing the cities of Santa Barbara, Goleta, and Carpinteria. So we know you're all here for hopefully a lot of learning and hopefully some conversation as well. So again, I just want to appreciate you taking time on your lunch hour to be with us today. I'm looking forward to hearing from you all as well. And just to start that off, one tool we'll be using today, I'm going to share it now, but we'll revisit it later. So if you don't get it, it's okay. But I'm going to post this Jamboard link for everyone to join. And then if you have anything that comes up during the meeting, you can feel free to add to this. So we have sections where you can feel free to express appreciation about something that you feel is good or motivating or positive. You can feel free to write down something that needs to be addressed. Maybe it's, hey, this particular neighborhood in South County needs some support. Or maybe it's, hey, there's a lot of issues around this particular topic that needs to be addressed more. And then lastly, we want to keep it open for questions and other suggestions or ideas in the I wonder section. So if you've never used a Jamboard before, what you can do is you can go over to the left side of the screen and add a sticky note where you can type your suggestion, and then you can put it wherever you want. So I encourage you, I'll put the link to this in the chat window. I encourage you to use it during the meeting if you like. Otherwise, we'll have some open time towards the end of the meeting to add to it as well. So let me put that link in the chat window for us. And with that, we'll go ahead and get started today. So today's conversation is really just around what is going on, what's being done around homelessness in South Santa Barbara County. And so when we're talking about South Santa Barbara County, we're talking everywhere from Carpinteria all the way through the end of Goleta. And so we're excited to share that there is a new partnership between this whole South County region to try to address homelessness as one joint unified effort. And so we'll be talking more about that today. So I'm going to start by sharing my screen here. And I will just say this recording will be available. You'll see this URL listed on a lot of these slides, but we really encourage you to check out sbac.org/wraps. You'll find a lot of the resources that we're talking about today listed here. So again, this recording will be available. So if you're rushing to take notes, you can always revisit it there. I want to start today by, this is something we do in a lot of our WRAP meetings, but just a reminder that the way that we talk about our neighbors experiencing homelessness does matter. It affects the way that we think about the people that we're seeing. It also affects the way we end up treating them. And so just a reminder that as we're talking about people, we want to think of them first and foremost as people. They are people who are experiencing homelessness rather than a homeless person, if that makes sense. We use the term homeless, but in some ways you might say it's actually more accurate to use the phrase houseless or unhoused, because for a lot of these individuals, Santa Barbara County is their home. So they would say, I'm not without a home, I'm just currently without a shelter or a roof over my head. Another note is that there is a lot of mental health and substance abuse concerns that come up when we talk about homelessness, and it's warranted. There's a lot of truly serious things that are happening both in our community and nationwide. And so as we talk about these issues, we just want to be careful that we're also using sensitive language, because for many of these individuals, this is a day-to-day struggle. And while behavior sometimes may not be appropriate, they're still people first and foremost. And we want to acknowledge the hard experiences we may have faced, as well as the struggles that they're going through. And then finally, just a reminder that there are so many different kinds of experiences for those who are experiencing homelessness. There's not just one. We kind of tend to group everyone into one category, but That's not really the case. And hopefully we can unpack that a little bit during this time together. So I want to lead off by just sharing a little bit about what has been done to date. So this collaborative in South County dates back to 2019, so it's relatively recent. And we've been working with a host of different partners. And our goal has been to try to incorporate a whole wide cross-sector group of partners. We don't want it to only be nonprofits that are focused on homelessness. We don't want to only talk with the government agencies. We also want to include businesses. We want to include the philanthropists that support this work. And we also really need to include people who've actually experienced homelessness, because they're going to be able to help shape and inform what we do to solve these issues. So this is a very incomplete list of just some of the partners that we've worked with over the last 4 years and who are continuing to work with this collaboration on the South County. And I'll just say, I should back up, SB Act, so our organization, we're not a direct service provider. We serve as a hub agency for this whole collaborative. So that's why we're here facilitating this conversation today. So let's talk about who is experiencing homelessness in our community. We really encourage you, if you haven't before, to check out the point in time count report from the County of Santa Barbara from 2023. It's really comprehensive and goes into this in more detail. But if you're not familiar, every January, every county does a count of everyone who's experiencing homelessness, whether that means the people sleeping outside, people sleeping in the shelters, or people sleeping in their vehicles. And then that count is then saved as the point in time count because it's one snapshot. Obviously, it's one night, so it's an imperfect count. You've got lots of people coming in and out of homelessness, and their lives everyone is going through transitions, whether you're experiencing homelessness or not. However, it gives us somewhat of a sense of where we are at as a community. So on here, you can see a little bit of where we're at. You can see that our numbers have stayed fairly consistent throughout the county with some changes, largely around the city of Santa Barbara, some decreases in the last 4 years. And as we go more in depth, we can see that the specific populations experiencing homelessness are really where we see the dramatic shifts. So you can see that the number of people who have been in the shelters has increased slightly. And that is likely due to a couple different factors. But one of them is that the number of people who are actually unsheltered on the streets has decreased. So the number of people who are out just living on the streets without a shelter at all has gone down, which we do celebrate. However, where do those people go? That's the question. And so we also want to name that the vehicular population has increased pretty significantly. We're seeing this more and more since the pandemic. We're not alone in this. This is happening countywide. This is happening statewide. And we're all trying to figure out, how do we address this surge in vehicular homelessness? I also just want to name this particular collaborative had a set of 3-year goals that we set when we were just focused on the city of Santa Barbara. One of those goals was focused on street exits, helping people to get off the streets and into either shelter, emergency shelter, into transitional housing like Dignity Moves, or into permanent housing where people can actually just live permanently. And so you can see over the last 2 years, we were able to achieve just over 200 street exits, which we really celebrate. Now, that's not the whole picture, because we know that people may move into shelter and then they may come back into homelessness again. And so this is a really a delicate thing to try and measure, but we do want to celebrate that we have lots of outreach providers that are out on the streets every day of the week, trying to address homelessness in our communities and trying to meet with those people and help them move in towards housing. So we're grateful for all their efforts and for the ways they've been able to help people towards housing. I put a QR code up in the corner as well. I'm not going to go really into detail today about all of the things that we worked on in the last iteration of this collaborative, but I encourage you to check out that QR code. It takes you to our report from the last 3 years where you can see more in detail what all has happened. I stole this slide from the county. So if Lucille is on the call today, I want to give her props for actually making this. But I want to just name that one of the reasons we've been able to see less and less people out on the streets is because we've been able to increase the options for housing for people who are experiencing homelessness. So throughout South Santa Barbara County, we've seen a lot of new options for permanent housing that have either been developed or actually just opened. Like in the city of Santa Barbara, just 2 weeks ago, Veracruz Village opened on Coda Street. And in the city of Goleta, we'll see the Buena Tierra project taking over the former Super 8 motel sometime this fall, hopefully. So there's quite a few projects like this. And in addition, there's also projects that are more transitional housing. And transitional housing is where people can go, they'll be able to have their own private space, but be able to work with case managers to figure out how can I actually find something that's permanent that I can move into. So this is really key for our solutions to homelessness, is having this housing available, whether it's transitional or permanent, and having those supportive services around the people that are moving in there. So I want to celebrate all the partners that have worked really hard to get these housing projects off the ground, and everyone who's advocated as well. So now I just want to talk really briefly about this collaborative that we have. So this is something, as I said, that's been ongoing since 2019, but just this year, we expanded beyond just the city of Santa Barbara into a South County-wide collaborative. So now this collaborative encompasses the cities of Carpinteria and Goleta, as well as some of the regions in between. And there's a lot of components to it. I think several of you on this call, I recognize your names, are familiar with some of the things that are on the far right side of this diagram. For example, the all-call meetings, that's what today is. This is just an open community forum for anyone to hear about what's going on with homelessness. But also, and I'll go into some of these in more depth, but also I want to note there's quite a bit going on behind the scenes as well. And many of these are meetings, they're not open to the community because we might be actually talking about individuals by name and talking about personal information or confidential information so that the service providers can actually address the needs of the people and help them get off the streets. So you'll see behind the scenes, we've got groups that are meeting regularly to talk about individuals in various regions throughout the county. Our county has a continuum of care addressing homelessness that has multiple meetings every week talking about different subpopulations within our homelessness population to try to address the specific needs of those individuals. And then I also want to note we have a lived experience working group. We have a group of about 8 to 10 individuals who either formerly experienced homelessness or are currently experiencing homelessness, who are meeting on a bi-weekly basis to try and help guide and steer some of these efforts, because we know that we need their vision in order to really be able to accurately address the problems we see. So I think the thing that many of you are most familiar with is the RAP meetings. If you're not, again, I encourage you to check out sbac.org/RAPs. But these are open community meetings where you can join to talk about one of these specific regions. If you have maybe concerns about things happening in your neighborhood and you just want to be able to talk to the service providers, we also have city staff there, law enforcement, all the different providers who are there to try and figure out how can we address homelessness in these different regions. And then we use part of that time also, we'll close it to the community members after they have shared their piece so that the service providers can talk about how are we going to address these problems behind the scenes. So again, we encourage you to join those. If you visit the URL there, you'll be able to see the schedule, but each of these RAPs meets at least once a month on Zoom. We have these open all-call meetings like this one that are happening quarterly, where we'll be giving you updates because we want to make sure that the community is aware and involved in this whole process. And we also do some neighborhood walks. We want to be out in the community as a collaborative so that we can see where the high impact areas are and talk to the businesses and the residents that are most impacted. Our next neighborhood walk, I don't actually think I have it on this slideshow, but it'll be on the 14th. So coming up this Thursday in the State Street area. So we'll be meeting at the downtown library in Santa Barbara. So I encourage you to join us. Again, we'll have some service providers, city staff, and law enforcement there as well. And I'm pulling up the time on that. It's at 11:30 a.m. So we'll put that in the chat window after this. And then finally, we'll be doing a bit of work over the next several months to try and promote more public education. We know that there are a lot of concerns about homelessness. One of the reasons that today's meeting is titled "What's Being Done About Homelessness" is because we hear the sentiment expressed a lot. Nothing's being done about homelessness. Nothing's being done. And it's not the case. And so we really need to help people understand there is quite a bit going on. And here's how you can actually get your problems addressed. Here are the people you should be talking to. Here are the ways that you can actually help with the solutions as well, if you're so inclined. So this is something that SB Act is going to be working on ongoing. And I know that several of our other partners have a vested interest in working on this as well. I'm just going to note a couple of things at the beginning before we get into the specifics from some of our regions, but we do have a quarterly newsletter. You can sign up at our website. You can also go to that same sbact.org/wraps link. Everything is there as well, but that's another way to stay informed. And then some of our cities have also developed resource guides. So if you are a community member, a business owner, whatever it may be, we have a listing of here's who you should call or email if you see someone who's experiencing a mental health crisis, or here's who you should call if there's an encampment that pops up near you, or if you see just a trash pile left over from a former encampment, if you see just a general need. So we really encourage you to go check those out, because a lot of the times we don't know who to call. And this is part of why we are hosting these meetings, is to try and help people not feel as helpless. So we really encourage you to check that out. We know also that there are a lot more resources countywide that aren't listed here, and we're working on getting those up onto the website as well. I see Rich put some of those URLs in the chat window as well. Thanks, Rich. So with that, I'm going to stop presenting for now. And I'm going to turn it over to some of our city staff. We have with us today the different city staff from each of the 3 cities involved in this collaborative right now. So Goleta, Santa Barbara, and Carpinteria. And they are going to be sharing just a little bit about their individual efforts in each of those cities. And then we'll also hear from Lucille Boss with the County of Santa Barbara as well, talking about what the county is doing throughout the entire region, because there's quite a bit going on there. So if it's all right with our city staff, I think I'd like to start. We'll go east to west, or west to east rather, and we'll start with Chuck Flax from the city of Goleta. So Chuck, can I turn it to you?
Sure, and we didn't prepare much for this, so do you want kind of an update on just what we're doing in Goleta specifically?
That would be great. And if you can just name also some of the regions that you're focusing on as well broadly, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, so the city of Goleta recently made a firm commitment over a number of years to getting more engaged directly with the problem of homelessness. And they did it budgetarily through their general fund. And then when COVID hit, they got a significant amount of emergency funds that they plugged into encampment relief. And that's when things got pretty involved here. We contracted with the city, with CityNet, the provider organization, to do outreach. We also were putting people into hotel rooms, and over the last couple of years, some really good things have opened up. Hedges House of Hope is a homeless shelter that's operated by the county, or actually Good Sam is the operating partner, but the county owns it. And it's a referral-based shelter. We've had a lot of success getting people out of encampments and into Hedges House of Hope. And then Buena Tierra is a 60-unit permanent supportive housing project that was funded through the state government home key program, which creates permanent supportive housing from existing commercial buildings. So this was a Super 8 motel that's now being converted into permanent supportive housing. That the county housing authority is the developer, and owner. They are currently have a RFP on the street to pick out a service provider. So we're anticipating, and many of the people going in there are coming from the Goleta and Isla Vista areas. On an ongoing basis, in order to really get a flow of people out of homelessness and into permanent housing, the city of Goleta contracted with CityNet, as I mentioned before, but we're partnering very closely with the county of Santa Barbara, very closely. So their encampment relief funding, which covers a large swath of the county along the transit corridors. Goleta actually has a significant number. In fact, the majority of people who are not in vehicles live in that area that we call the SURF region, the California Emergency or Encampment Relief Fund. And so the county has a whole program of helping people get out of those encampments into shelter and then permanent housing, and then clearing the encampments. Lucille Boss is the encampment coordinator overseeing that whole program. It's been really critical to our success to have that partner. The biggest challenge we're facing in Goleta is a growing number of people living in vehicles. And Landon mentioned this earlier. I think we're going to see this not just countywide, but nationally, as the baby boom generation retires with or without pensions and is trying to figure out how to survive in their, with growing expenses. We're going to see more and more people, I think, moving into vehicles full time. And the question will be, how do we work with that population? How do we help them? Where should they go? Where can they get restrooms and showers and facilities like that? So for people who are interested, this Tuesday, a week from tomorrow, our homeless issues standing committee will be meeting at 3:30. It's a public meeting, and one of the topics of conversation will be the addressing people living in vehicles and how we move forward. Currently, we have an excellent provider. They may be on the call. New Beginnings Counseling Center. They have what's called a safe parking program. And we're working with them to really try to expand their offerings in the city of Goleta. So we have I like to think of it as a real flow from the streets into permanent supportive housing. And we have all of these different supporting programs that are either currently online or coming online. I forgot to mention one of the biggest ones, which is Dignity Moves will be opening with the county support. La Posada, which is not in Goleta proper, but it's on the old site of the juvenile hall, and there's going to be about 80 units of shelter beds there as well. So just a lot really happening because of all the different funding sources or funding grants that have come down from the state. And so I'm happy to report that we're poised to take advantage of that. And I like to say that we'd like to see functional zero in Goleta within the next 3 to 5 years. And what that means is that anyone coming into homelessness, it will be a rapid process out of homelessness, a one-time experience, and we would just want to make it, as brief an experience for people as possible, recognizing that we have a really difficult housing market. So I think I hope that's what you were looking for, Landon.
Yeah, no, that's great. We will have some time for questions and discussion at the end as well, but we'll wait just a minute. Don't put your contact info in the chat yet. I want to group them all together after everyone's presented. So let's go to Joao Ruiz, who's Code Enforcement Officer with the City of Santa Barbara.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joao. Thank you for that introduction, Landon. Yes, I'm a Code Enforcement Officer for the City of Santa Barbara. I'm going to share my screen here. Are you guys able to see that?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So my department is Environmental Services Division, and it's through the Sustainability and Resilience Department. And just a quick overview of our program. It's the Clean SB program is run by the City of Santa Barbara Environmental Service Division. It consists of several efforts to reduce trash, litter in our community. The goal is to have Santa Barbara neighborhood, public spaces, and natural areas clean and enjoyable for all. So the components of the program are illegal dumping, cleanups, the investigation, encampment response, litter abatement, abandoned shopping carts retrieval, volunteer cleanups, adopt a block, and I'll paste this link here on the chat. And then I also want to talk about our new app. Landon, you were talking about that earlier. People don't know where to report things. Well, now the city has a new citywide program. Are you guys able to see this?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so this is our new web form. It's also available on Android and iPhone. So you guys could go and download that. So the way it works, you create an account and you go to requests, create a new request, load, and you can report anything citywide, whether it's, a sidewalk that's cracked, a tree that is down, an encampment, litter, shopping carts, anything, and you'll get a response, and you can pretty much track the progress of that report in real time. And you'll get, photos, you'll either get a call, you'll definitely get an email, and this is what we see. Oh, where to go? Here. So these have been coming in from the public already for people who have already downloaded it. And here we're able to hear someone report illegal dumping. Oh, that's Dwight, code enforcement officer. We're able to respond. We can see the photos that people submitted. So you could download the app or you could just do it online. I'll paste this web form as well. The official launch is tomorrow, but I decided to start talking about it today. Right. And let's go to the data. I know everyone's here to see data. So this guy. So you can see here the reports that have been coming in. The symbols up here on the far left corner, so you can kind of get an idea of what we're talking about, is encampments, abandoned waste, litter. You can see here where the encampments were mostly reported. It's the transit corridor. In 2021, we got about 350 reports of encampment. In 2022, we got 320. And as of today, we have 241 encampments. So we could actually break it down here and see where the main, here in downtown, it's mostly litter and abandoned waste. A few encampments. We could break it down even further in region. East Beach, you can see where the encampments have been primarily located. Once again, it's on the transit corridor. A few on Union Pacific. On the east side. East side didn't have too many encampments. What is that, 8? But mostly it's been abandoned waste and litter on that area. You can see where it's been kind of concentrated at. On the lower east side, they had a little bit more encampments, a little bit of mix, a lot of abandoned waste and litter. Let's see. Let's go to Lower State Street. You can kind of get an idea. And this data you can find on our website. It's up to date. So if you want to go in and see what it looks like in your neighborhood, you can pretty much see the information there. Abandoned waste. This year we had 1,700 reports come in on abandoned waste in the area. And let's see. We'll go back to this presentation. And here's just a quick overview of some of the work that we've done in collaboration with some of our partnering agencies. Like this was with Caltrans. We requested a few areas to have iron fencing. In addition to that, we also added iron fencing to a lot of portions of the city to help with, the trash and litter areas. Here's on Laguna. This is a fire-prone area, so we did request Caltrans to help and assist with adding iron fence. So this is what they added. Let's see what else. Labor line here. We've had a lot of encampments throughout the year, but we closed it down temporarily to restructure it. We did a lot of cleanup, and this is what it looks like now. Cacique had been a big area for homeless people. We had a lot of campsite people hiding in the bushes, and it is a fire-prone area, so we've been maintaining it very well here. Our underpasses are the cities. We have a litter team who go out and pick up litter throughout the city. They do somewhere between 75 city blocks to 100 city blocks. They do all our underpasses twice a week. So that's what it looks like now. And a new program that's been helping a lot with the illegal dumping is we've been putting cameras throughout the city. Here's one. This area has been an issue. And that vehicle there is dumping some trash. So if you recognize that vehicle, please do not tell that person. They will receive a letter in the mail explaining everything. Let's see. And that's pretty much it. Do we have any questions?
We may
Okay.
yeah, we'll circle back around for that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Joao. All right, and then let's go to David Hernandez, Code Enforcement Officer with the City of Carpinteria.
Hi, Landon. Thank you for having me. We started addressing homeless issues strictly as an enforcement tool, to kind of combat the problem downtown businesses or home in residential areas and stuff like that. And it was strictly enforcing our city codes. We found out that approach was not the best approach, and doing some outreach with the help of some partners to address those issues produced better results. So we started having some outreach teams come in, and they found that our local population was not static. They weren't building encampments. They were constantly moving around. So we came up with an idea to have a weekly meeting point where we could offer some services, and that's grown to basically what we have today. And it's a great, we offer anywhere from showers to food to services up to including getting them off the street and into housing. We've recently partnered with New Beginnings for the safe parking program, so we have that actively going, and I believe we have our location full at this time, or almost full. What else? The community community can reach us. I work with the community sheriff's deputy. That's our community resource deputy. So when they make contact in the field, they those contacts are given to him, and then we, the next day or within that week, try to reach out and offer services that way. So the community can reach out to us or the sheriffs, and then we can refer them to our weekly, what we call our lunch program, and have all the service providers there at one point and offer them services. We're excited that you guys are now, in a southern, in a South Coast, and not strictly into Santa Barbara. I think we always felt a little out here by ourselves and had to figure things out. So it's great to have some extra hands and help and having some ideas to work collaboratively.
Thank you, David.
Yeah.
And it looks like Chuck and Joao have put links and contact info in the chat if you wouldn't mind joining them as well. And then finally, we know that our cities do not exist in a vacuum. We're a part of Santa Barbara County. And so this whole South Coast region has also been a part of our county's work since they've been involved in homelessness. And we have unincorporated areas, but also just throughout the cities, our county is deeply invested in addressing issues of homelessness. So I asked Lucille Boss today to just share a little bit about some of the specific encampment response that she is working on, that the county is working on.
Thanks, Landon. Okay, can everybody see the screen with just the full page map?
Yes.
Okay, glad to see some names and faces that I don't recognize. I'm Lucille Boss, and I am it feels like a new role, but I guess it's been 2 years now, Encampment Response Coordinator with the County of Santa Barbara. So today I'll focus on encampment resolution strategy and protocol since we just passed the 2-year mark, but also happy to answer questions if there are any at the end. So for those who aren't familiar, the encampment resolution strategy and encampment response protocol was approved by the county's Board of Supervisors on August 31st of 2021, and it's a 3-year effort, so 21 through 2024. And the initial goal was to resolve 45 encampments of varying size and impact. And the approved strategy really relies on an effective system of care that can ultimately provide shelter, housing, and services to meet the needs of persons who are experiencing unsheltered homelessness, specifically in encampments. Back in late 2021, the county invested in a point person, so that's me, an encampment response coordinator. Also invested in sanitation services. That's something that funding that is dedicated to addressing homelessness that comes from the federal or state government does not include funding for cleanups. So our county board of supervisor used some of our funds to support sanitation services. And the county also invested in outreach teams. So these steps and subsequent progress really allows us to pursue new funding and leverage new funding. So today I'll talk about some of our collective efforts, which includes our city partners here and other agencies such as Caltrans. The metrics that were initially approved have not been as accurate in capturing the work and movement of encampments as we had initially proposed. I'm pointing that out in case you caught the goal number of 45 was our initial goal. County-funded street outreach providers began using the Fulcrum mapping software in early 2021, and as of August 31st of 2021, there were 120 encampments mapped throughout the county. In that first year, so September 21 to August 2022, 961 sites were mapped by outreach providers. And yep.
Real quick, I think it stopped sharing your slides. It's showing some other screens.
Okay, let's see. Sorry, I'll try to figure out which one it should be sharing. Give me just a second to.
It was showing your Fulcrum map instead.
It should be showing some that had a few screenshots from Santa Maria. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, it was sharing the right thing. Sorry. Okay, so you're seeing kind of the Santa Maria area?
Yeah, and then there's 4 windows at the bottom.
Yes, and I'll say, so these are samples. So if you look closely, you'll see that they're all characters from Parks and Rec, the show. So this is just a sample. So this is a screenshot. Apologies for that, I should have clarified. So this is a screenshot from Fulcrum, also with samples. So like the it shows Ron Swanson and Andy Dwyer. So not real individual information, but wanted to just showcase some of the ways that we use our mapping tools. Preliminary reports as of this August. Again, we're still doing kind of the data cleanup, but collective efforts to resolve encampments among county, cities, Caltrans, and railroad partners from July 1, 2021 to August 31st of this year have resulted in removal or clearing of approximately 700 active encampments and about the same number of inactive encampments that were removed or cleared. And of the persons residing in those encampments, 289 have relocated to shelter or housing. Sites on private, city, and other public parcels, while recorded in the mapping software, have been removed by Caltrans cities or other community groups. And this morning in South Santa Barbara County, there were 201 active sites and 167 active vehicle or RV sites. The encampment resolution strategy gave us the framework to resolve encampments, but the biggest challenge by far has been the lack of shelter, which provides an effective path to housing solutions and permanent housing. And this has limited our ability to resolve active encampments. Because of this limitation, our county resources have primarily been dedicated to removing debris from already abandoned or inactive encampments. And many of the people who remain unsheltered have all of the documents needed to move into permanent housing, but there's a lack of affordable housing units for permanent placements. And an additional challenge has been really due to overriding public safety concerns. Many encampments are being cleared without appropriate shelter or storage, and this results in people moving from one area or encampment to another, which disrupts engagement with outreach teams, and the displaced persons really lose faith in our systems of care. But we always want to share successes too. So in addition to the American Rescue Plan Act, state and local recovery funds, county staff have worked with partner jurisdictions and agencies to apply for competitive California encampment resolution funding. And we collectively were one of 10 communities awarded funds in both rounds. First round was dedicated to resolving encampments along the transit corridors throughout our county. And the newest effort, so brand new, so we're not seeing the impacts of it yet, but really dedicated to addressing unique needs and waterways with a specialized outreach team. And county staff continues to coordinate with key stakeholders in an effort to develop and formalize collaborative, organized approaches to address unsheltered homelessness at encampments, really establishing effective, scalable, and replicable demonstration efforts. So today, as we are developing the year 2 progress report, data again is still being reviewed, but we want to share a few key updates. The collective efforts to resolve encampments among county, cities, Caltrans, and railroad partners, again, have resulted in removal or clearing of approximately 700 active encampments. And of the persons residing in those encampments, 289 have relocated to shelter or housing. Encampment resolution has been a collaborative effort of many service providers, outreach teams, shelters, and affordable housing partners. And we knew that with this strategy, we needed a broad strategy with some key components. First is an encampment response protocol and team. The lack of shelter beds has limited the ability to complete team assessments and encampment resolution. We know that the recommended interventions rely on available resources. When available, shelter becomes an effective path to housing solutions rather than moving people from one unsheltered location to another. We also wanted to focus on increasing access to shelter. The county has made a commitment to ending unsheltered homelessness through investments in interim housing. The original strategy called for an increase in the flow through existing shelters by exiting people to permanent housing, which is something Chuck mentioned just a moment ago. And we've seen that in the past week alone as people moved into Veracruz Village from Dignity Moves and Path, which opened up new beds and cabins for people to move to from unsheltered locations. And we'll see similar movement as Buena Tierra opens up in Goleta later this year. Another component was to complete development and secure sustainable funding for 100 beds that were in the pipeline at the time back in August 2021. That was Hedges House of Hope in Isla Vista, Rainbow Village in Lompoc, and Dignity Moves on Santa Barbara Street. And we continue to pursue funding for operations, but also for unexpected things like plumbing challenges. For now, though, we're celebrating the 70 people who have moved from those locations into permanent housing. And third, identifying sites and future funding for additional beds through Home Key, which we've done recently in Goleta with Buena Tierra, and hopefully in Santa Barbara with the Turner Foundation House as well. Another key component of the strategy was leveraging long-term rental subsidies. Our county, and specifically our public housing authorities, has received national recognition for the success of our emergency housing voucher lease-up and for the supportive services model funded by the county, Continuum of Care, and to date, the cities of Carpinteria and Goleta. And we continue to advocate for additional long-term subsidies paired with supportive services. Creating new permanent housing units. Our public housing authorities, in partnership with cities, the county, and others, continue to develop new permanent housing units. But we know it's not enough, and we remind everybody of the need for more at each ribbon cutting. Another key component has been robust outreach and engagement. The funding that supported outreach teams in recent years was primarily through one-time COVID-19 response grants and allocations, which ended. So the county made an investment in outreach and continues to pursue funding to target hotspots such as the transit corridor and most recently waterways, this time with a specialized outreach team, which will support existing teams with behavioral and physical health expertise. And finally, sustained adequate funding. We're in our final year of the encampment resolution strategies and the dedicated funding that came with it. So as I just shared, there's been a lot of success, but we have a lot more to do. So we continue to pursue new funding streams to support existing efforts. And of course, I can talk about data points, challenges, and plans all day, but at the end of the day, what really matters is that our collective efforts have changed lives for hundreds of people alone this year, over 1,000 last year. On the screen, you'll see a couple of photos of someone familiar to many of our outreach teams, Gerard and his pup, Rodney. The first photo shows him displaying his cabin at Dignity Moves about a year ago, and the second and third of him providing an update about his job and his permanent housing placement with representatives from HUD who wanted to check in on him just a few weeks ago. So hopefully those are some helpful updates. And again, at the end, if there's time, happy to answer any questions.
And Lucille, can you also share in the chat who the best contact would be if someone sees an issue that needs being addressed in unincorporated land or along those highway corridors?
Sure. And I'll put my email address, but I'll also put a page to refer anybody who you might be concerned about and want to connect them with a coordinated entry point so that they can get connected with folks.
Thank you. So we do rely heavily on our county partners here because they are ultimately the ones that are coordinating efforts countywide for all of homelessness throughout our region. And so we really appreciate your efforts there, specifically with this encampment response fund. So with this, that's kind of the end of our formal presentations today. But I wanted to use the rest of our time for some community dialogue. I'm going to share again the link to the Jamboard, just if nothing else as a framework for some conversation today. And I'm just going to share it on the screen again. We'd really love to hear from you. What are the things that you feel excited by, motivated by, the I like category? What are the I wish things? What are the areas of concern that you see, whether it's geographical areas or just conceptual things that need to be addressed? And then the I wonders, what are ideas you have? What do you see that could have potential for the future? So if you feel inclined to, or if you're feeling introverted, it's a great way to just post it on the Jamboard. If you'd like to just share out, though, we welcome questions and comments at this time as well. We really want to have time for dialogue together.
This is Al over here sitting at Landon. One thing that we always, could use in our community, in all aspects, is just more flexible funds for different things that just brought this opportunity for our clients, depending on their situation or concern or opportunity, whether it's, housing, whether it's getting into, like safe parking programs. There's a lot of different options. I think that's a very important one that we can always utilize in our community.
Can you, Al, for people who might not be familiar, can you talk about what kind of things that flexible funds get used for if the outreach agencies have them?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the biggest ones that I think is very important, when it comes to, because as you said, the amount of vehicular homelessness that there is right now, based off the numbers that we were hearing from earlier, people need, help with their registration or something when there's, check engine light comes on and they need to get a smog test in order to get their registration, or some, vehicle insurance. They can't get enrolled into safe parking programs or properly be parked somewhere safe and legal without these type of funds available to help pay for these resources, to pay for some maybe 6 months worth of insurance so they can get a job, so they can increase their income. And that's one of the biggest things for case managers when we get them document ready, is to increase their income. So many of these individuals that have vehicles, we need to be able to help them to continue to have those vehicles to get to and from work, to be able to have the opportunities when the housing comes up. But even then, just to be able to park in a safe place for a designated period or time, so they can get the proper rest to continue making progress towards housing, which is the total goal. That's just one, big one. But anything from pets, as we know, pets and animals are a big supporter for individuals in the street. So when they get into shelter, being able to provide them all the vaccinations that they need, the licenses that they need, all these things, even when they get into permanent housing, these are, things that are necessary. We want to be able to use flexible funds for these type of things for our clients.
Thanks, Al. Appreciate that. See a couple of comments here in the Jamboard. A couple shout outs, one to Mary Osgood and the team that are doing their lunch on Tuesdays out in Isla Vista. Also appreciation for the new SB Connect app within the city of Santa Barbara.
I'm sorry, what did you say, Landon? I lost you there for a second.
Oh, I was just sharing, someone put an appreciation for the new SB Connect app they just wrote an appreciation that it looks great.
Perfect. Thank you. Go ahead and download it. It's on the App Store, or you could just fill out a request online.
I have some words of appreciation for the collaboration between all the local agencies, government, and service providers. It's inspiring. There are a lot of meetings happening behind the scenes. I think our county partners can attest to this more than almost anyone, but there is a lot of efforts to try and coordinate what everyone's doing, because we know that if we don't all work together, the issues won't get solved.
Can I give an example of that? That's a shout out to two people. So just earlier today, we had a representative from Assemblymember Hart's office say, we have this person who's been showing up to our office and they're wanting some help. And it can be complicated to remember where to go or when to go there if you can't go somewhere at that moment to get assistance. So they'd been provided the coordinated entry sites and the neighborhood navigation centers, but it was, the next day or later that day, and it was just hard to coordinate getting them there. So this time, Behavioral Wellness and CityNet just showed up, just met them where they are, went to Assemblymember Hart's office, and were able to connect with somebody. So appreciate Ted from Be Well and Al from CityNet. Just with the office reaching out to us and just a text, they said, "Yep, we'll figure it out. We'll go there and we'll help them." I think that's something that all of our outreach workers have crazy schedules, transporting clients to really important appointments, going to all these meetings in between those appointments, but they're also willing to just kind of drop everything and help somebody who needs help right then. So just a huge appreciation for them.
Landon, I thought, kind of given your lead in, this is Kimberly Albers from the county. I serve as the Homelessness Assistance Program Manager with Lucille, and oftentimes we hear the need for more case conferencing. And so I thought maybe I would just flash again. Case conferencing is done right among frontline staff where releases of information are in place. So those aren't generally open at all to the public. And so sometimes those aren't public facing for people to know all that work that's being done. But do you mind if I quick flash the screen with our long list of case conferencing, just so folks are aware?
Yes, feel free. And maybe you might need to define case conferencing for the community.
Yeah, so we talk a lot about there's this need for this coordination that we're talking about, right? For case managers from one agency to be talking to another. And so the county facilitates several meetings per month to really make those conversations happen amongst providers. In fact, some of our case conferencing meetings have as many as 60 frontline workers that are attending. So just really briefly, I'll just flash this up here, because I think sometimes, we talk about a lot of meetings, but these are just where individual clients are being discussed amongst providers through that release of information in order to really make sure that they're getting connected to services. So I think just a valuable thing for everyone to have an idea about. Again, these are not public meetings. These are where case managers who are part of the release of information can really share and coordinate.
Thank you, Kimberly. All right, I see a lot of good comments popping up here in the Jamboard. I really appreciate this. Definitely a lot about behavioral health concerns and need for more immediate mental health support. So we are seeing this, and obviously this is a nationwide, we're in a nationwide mental health crisis at the moment. And we're feeling that in Santa Barbara County. We heard a presentation just a couple of weeks ago about staffing shortages for mental health, behavioral health staff countywide. And that's not just for people experiencing homelessness, that's for everybody. So this is actually one of the areas that we're specifically trying to address through this collaborative. And I know that our county partners are doing a lot of work on this as well. I see one interesting thing on here about developing a plan or a regional plan for sustainably developing housing across the whole region. So we do have what's known as a housing element. And I don't know, Kimberly or Lucille, if I could call on one of you to just share a little bit about that and where we're at currently with our county's housing element. I'm sorry to put you on the spot again.
So we are hoping to have an approved housing element later this fall. And maybe just something important for this group to realize is that for the first time, we're seeing the state actually tie our upcoming homelessness funding to an approved housing element. So, so sometimes we think of the two things separately, right? But homelessness and housing are so inextricably linked now. So our housing element is underway in those final stages of making changes requested by the state. But Lucille, if you have an additional update, please jump in.
I think I spent more time, not from my county role, but other roles, we're looking at the city of Santa Barbara housing element update. But I'm just impressed at all of our local jurisdictions. They have specific goal areas, policy changes, program changes, and timelines. And that's all based on the number of housing units that we know we need, that we've known we've needed, and that we anticipate having a need for in the upcoming few weeks. So I think SB Act has done a great job about sending information out about any housing element update meetings that are coming up where you can go and learn, but also advocate in whatever way is meaningful to you.
Okay, each of the individual cities, as Lucille mentioned, has their own housing element as well. And this is all getting wrapped together. So we have major mandates from our state to build more housing. And so there's a large coordinated effort to try and make that happen. We do encourage you to check it out. I posted the link for the county's housing element update where you can actually view some of the sites that are, potential sites for housing developments. Each the individual city, you'll be able to find that as well. Let's see. Appreciate there's a comment on here about preventing homelessness from occurring. This is a huge need. And this is, again, something that our county's continuum of care, it's one of the priority areas that's being focused on. So this is kind of one of those behind the scenes conversations more so, but it is a huge need. And we've seen, especially with the huge inflation rise and just rents soaring in our communities, that we've seen a lot more people falling out of housing kind of around those times as well. So there's a strong correlation there.
Landon, would it make sense maybe to send out to this group that we have something called prevention, diversion, and rehousing, an access line? So if you have someone that is, really at that point of falling out of housing, we encourage you to use that line. Or if they're a CenCal Health member, that means they would have Medi-Cal. Then United Way of Santa Barbara County has some special funding now. This is specifically for folks that are losing their existing unit or have just very recently become homeless. So we want to make sure those resources are getting out widely for relocation assistance or prevention.
Thank you. There was a question about some of the different mobile services that are offered. So there is an answer here. There are Showers of Blessing, operates 5 days a week across South County. You can visit their website to see where they operate. We also have Doctors Without Walls is operating throughout the region. And then we have our county public health nurses, county behavioral wellness that are out throughout the county as well, doing outreach to individuals. Of course, we could always use more. So those are several of those organizations you can volunteer with as well if you're interested. That's a good point to just plug. Also, SB Act facilitates a couple of different neighborhood navigation centers. Right now, there are 3 in the city of Santa Barbara, and these are sites around the city where we just host all of the different mobile service providers converging together for a couple of hours once a week. So that people experiencing homelessness know, hey, if I go to that parking lot at this hour, I will be able to both meet with my case manager from CityNet, but I can also get a meal, I can also get a shower, I can also talk to Doctors Without Walls. So I'll post the link for those sites in the chat window, and we're in the process of starting a neighborhood navigation center in Goleta as well. There was one question here, and it looks like it was answered, but just around the advance notice when encampments are being removed. I think each of our different regions is very sensitive to that because we know that we need to treat people with compassion. And so all of our cities and county are very careful about that. And there are some legal requirements around that as well. I don't know, maybe Lucille, could I call on you to just share a little bit about how that works?
Sure. So the county protocol is a 72-hour notice as well, with before that many opportunities for engagement, shelter, and storage. Again, before posting that notice, but that is a court ruling that 72-hour notice is the minimum. I think unless there are certain immediate public health or safety concerns, and Kimberly probably can recite every single one of the court rulings.
No, and I think I just was jumping on to say that, we always want to do 72 hours. Obviously, most of the time it's weeks of engagement prior to an actual posting. But I do think that there are times recently where there has been an imminent safety risk, right? Where a camp is on the side of the highway where someone's actually having to walk on the freeway, like to get to their camp. So we call that kind of like a level 1 in Caltrans language. So then those sometimes are cited and posted without that full 72-hour notice, or along the railroad corridor, right? If someone is within, Lucille can probably help me, but it's like 10 feet of the rail or something, that would be considered, right, an imminent risk where someone must be removed immediately. So just wanted everyone to know when we talk about that 72 hours, it's a guideline. We want to give it whenever we can, and obviously much longer in most cases, but we have seen like a king tide coming in and someone is on the beach within 10 feet of the railroad corridor, actually on the side of the highway where they're using the highway for access. Those camps sometimes are posted with immediate, the need for folks to vacate immediately.
I see a comment popped up too about I wish people would stop thinking we can build our way out of the problem. And I think what we would affirm there is that it isn't just the housing that is needed, because we know that somebody can get into housing and then fall right back out again. There's a lot of trauma for people who are coming off the streets. There are often instabilities and issues, maybe just around finances or whatever it may be, that could cause someone to fall back into homelessness. So it's true that just building alone will not solve this problem. We do need the housing, but also we need the supportive services to go linked with that. And we also need some of those flexible funds and subsidies to be able to help support people so they can actually pay for that first and last month's deposit, and they can get into the housing in the first place, and then get back on their feet. So it's a very, it's not a quick solution by any means, but it certainly is more, ultimately, it's less draining on the system if we do those things first, rather than trying to support people out on the streets for the entirety of their lives.
Hi.
Yes, Nancy, go ahead.
Hi. So I'm going to try to do this because I'm watching my grandchildren right now. So I have a son who is homeless. He's been in and out of homeless 10 years on the streets of Santa Barbara. Every winter he's with me. I could not find him any shelter for last winter. I wasn't going to leave him out in our atmospheric withers. I got him into the Rose Garden Inn program. I've been working on this for a couple and a half years now, trying to get my son sheltered. He just signed for a mainstream voucher, housing voucher, and I'm hoping that I can find him some housing. I don't know if any of your partners out there can help us with that. I have one lead of all the phone calls that I've made. I talked to Dario's office. He doesn't have any more units available. So I talked to my son. I said, what is your life? And he said, well, I look for cardboard to sleep on. Then when I get up, I try to find a bathroom. Then I try to find some coffee and some food. And he gets some referrals, and he said he'll go to a referral and they'll say, oh no, this is not the right place. And they give him another referral. So then he has no car, no transportation, no bus. And he'll try to go to the other referral. And they said, Mom, nobody's really doing anything. And first, I want to thank you all for what you are doing. I know things are being done. My son is just falling through the cracks, and I'm desperate to help him. I don't want him to end up like so many others have. You know, he suffers from sleep deprivation, severe social anxiety, depression. He feels hopeless, grief.
Nancy,
I'm
this
a
is
registered
Kimber-
nurse, 25 years.
This is Kimberly. I sent you a
Hi.
private message. If you wouldn't mind sharing your son's name with me. Sometimes we don't know when someone receives a mainstream voucher if he's not connected with another service provider. So you sharing that information with us can really help. So if you see on the chat, I again send you a private chat. If you can provide your son's name, then I can try and follow up. But I really appreciate you sharing and just.
Can I just share it right now? Because I'm not sure I'll have time to find that chat.
Oh, okay. Well, I just didn't know if you wanted to share it openly with everyone. But if you
can
do,
help
then
my
that's
son.
great.
He's
Yeah.
so grateful. His name is David. His last name is Crone, C-R-O-N-E. He's 6'2" with a long brown ponytail. I know he charges his phone at the library. I took him in over this last rainy session again, but it just doesn't work out when he's at my house. You know, I do what I can, but my children, my daughters are afraid for my safety. And I got grandkids out here. Hey, you guys, be good for 2 more minutes, okay? Anyway,
Hello,
yeah,
Nancy.
if anyone can help, I'd so appreciate it.
Hello, Nancy. This is Al with CityNet. I'm very familiar with your son and have a great rapport with them. Never had an opportunity to meet you yet. I'm not sure if you can take down my number because it doesn't sound like the chat's working best.
No, I can get your number. Hello, what's the matter, honey?
It's
Say hi.
805.
Yeah.
Hello, young
Hello,
lady.
my Uncle David. Okay, phone number 805.
319
Okay,
6946.
okay. And he was with your program for 6 months.
I'm very familiar with David.
Okay. I can call you. I'll be back in town on the 14th. I'm up in Washington State right now.
Yeah,
All
I
right, I'll
definitely.
call you later today.
Yeah, my goal is to reconnect with David and then move forward with what we can provide support with
Thank you.
the movement.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you,
again, thank you. I'm so happy that this is happening for Santa Barbara. It was so terrible for the people, terrible for our city. I'm so grateful to see things happening. That's it. I gotta get back to the grandkids. Thanks.
Thank you, Nancy. Saw a comment come in around disconnect between the city and county housing authority systems. And there is just a point of clarification too, for those of you who aren't familiar, that we have a county housing authority that's in charge of building affordable housing throughout Santa Barbara County, with the exception of the city of Santa Barbara, which has its own city of Santa Barbara housing authority. And so they operate in those two different jurisdictions. So the Veracruz Village that just opened was a city of Santa Barbara Housing Authority project, whereas Buena Tierra will be a county housing authority project. So there is some confusion about that from time to time, but we do try to work really closely with those different agencies to make sure that people know who they're working with and what services they're receiving. We're nearing the end of our time, and we'll still have a couple more minutes for questions, but I want to make sure before people leave the call that I want to share just a couple of notes about where to go from here. So I'm going to pull up my slides once more. So number one, I just want to say that if anyone has an interest in getting more involved, again, we encourage you to go to our website, sign up for the newsletter, because there will be plenty of points to advocate along the way. Every time there's a new development, every time that a service provider is going before our city or county and asking for more funding, there's different ways to advocate so that we can help support this system that's helping people to get off of the streets. And then there's also different ways to volunteer. You can volunteer with any number of different nonprofits. We named Showers of Blessing, we named Doctors Without Walls in our different shelters, but we know in the city of Goleta, we're building this neighbor navigation center and we're looking for volunteers to provide meals. So that's one way, but we want to encourage you to stay in touch with us.
And transportation, remember for Goleta, I don't know if you were there when we were talking about it earlier today, but a big thing. We need volunteers to help transport people to the new neighborhood navigation center. So if anybody wants to volunteer.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of logistics we're still working out there. And then lastly, just a note, we are hosting these meetings quarterly. We really want the community to stay involved. You can be involved more regularly if you'd like to participate in one of our monthly wrap meetings. And so you can view those at the website again. But if you're interested, our next open meet forum like this will be on Monday, December the 11th at noon. So we encourage you to mark that on your calendar as well. And hopefully by then we intend to have some specific updates about the goals of this particular South County Collaborative that we can share with you. Any other final discussion points? Yeah, sorry.
Just one more question. How do I access, you said this is available, it's recorded. How would I access it later?
So it'll be available on sbac.org/wraps. I'll put that link in the chat window as well.
RAPS?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Bye, everybody.
Hi, Nancy, thank you.
Appreciate all you're doing.
Any other last questions?
Where will the neighborhood navigation center in Goleta be located?
So we are finalizing things now. We'll be able to share that publicly, I think, in the next couple of weeks.
Thank you.
Yeah, but definitely we will share that out. I see a comment in the Jamboard about a formal collaborative between auto repair shops and auto dealerships to provide qualified, compassionate auto repair. And I appreciate whoever wrote that. Yeah, there's a lot of people sleeping in their vehicles who are struggling because they can't pass the smog check to get the registration to get into the safe parking program. So that is certainly another way to volunteer time and services. Anything else? Thank you all so much for being here today. We really appreciate your time. I really encourage you to reach out if you have any questions or comments, because we want to have this be something that helps you all as community members and engages you all. We want to learn from what you're seeing. So please reach out, and otherwise we hope to see you on some of our meetings. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.